Hata katika nchi zingine zote barani Afrika, hakuna nchi, hata zile nchi tajiri kushinda Kenya, kama Nigeria na Egypt, ambaye wanalipa daktari ambaye bado ni mwanafunzi ati shilingi 1,200. Sisi tumewaambia ile inaweza kupatikana ni hiyo 70,000. Na katika kaunti zingine kama mimi Bungoma, tayari tumepromote over 20 doctors. Tumeajiri zaidi ya madaktari 67 health workers. Jumanne hii Tuesday tuko na mkutano ile inaitwa Council of Governors, pia kuchangia na kuzungumzia masuala haya.
We are seeing a reduction starting from midnight tonight of 5 shillings and 31 cents for the super petrol grade, 10 shillings for the diesel grade, and 18 shillings and 68 cents for kerosene.
Mafuta ndio ile ilikuwa pale, mumeona hata leo imeanguka na shilingi 10 just today. Because we are making the right decisions. We are not making popular decisions. And Kenya is going to go forward.
Tumeona hapa habari imetolewa na Inspector General wa polisi. Vile Kome vile alisema. Nasema sasa kuanzia kesho watafanya maajabu, watalazimisha madaktari wapende wasipende yale ambayo wao wenyewe kama serikali wanapenda. Hiyo lazima tuyakemee.
Viongozi wengi wanahangaika, wanasumbuka, wakitafuta umaarufu, wakitafuta kupigiwa makofi. Mimi nataka niwaambie viongozi, you have not been elected to be popular.
Kupatia wakulima na kuuzia mkulima wa Kenya fertilizer gush, fertilizer fake, you are committing an economic crime, Mr. Linturi. And an economic crime cannot be forgiven unless you resign from office.
Tuko na mbunge wa Bumula hapa Wamboka, wakiwa na PK Salasia na bwana Mule hapa, wako wanapeleka mswada. Yule waziri wa kilimo walioleta wakora na wakaleta mawe kusema ni mbolea, tumesema lazima aende wapi? Nyumbani.
Tumeweka mpango ya kilimo kuzalisha chakula, ndio tuweze kupunguza gharama ya chakula, tuweze kuondoa njaa katika taifa letu. Hatuwezi kukubali nchi isambaratishwe na madawa ya kulevya na ulevi, ama nchi isambaratishwe na madeni.
All right, that is on the soapbox, and of course just giving you those glimpse of very intriguing bites from different voices in authority. Keep talking to us at KTN News across board. You can find me at Doris Anki on X, Anki Doris Ombat on Facebook. And also with us on this table this morning, I want to appreciate once again and acknowledge their voices and presence. Dr. Ekuru Aukot, Party Leader, Third Way Alliance. Also with us is Honorable Beatrice Alachi, Member of Parliament, Dagoretti North. I want to appreciate Honorable Hilary Sigei, Senator Bomet, and finally Dr. Makali Mulu, Member of Parliament, Kitui Central. Thank you very much for staying with us. As we sip on the coffee, it's very important, however, that we discuss some very key issues in this country, health at the center of it, saying the Constitution doesn't give you a chance for excuses. If you really want to do something about it, you'll have the will and not the excuse. But which side is making this difficult for the solutions to come forth? Honorable Elachi mentioned something about, the commission. In fact, she asked, she said this is where we went wrong. But looking at 2017, how many years later are we still talking about a CBA that ought to have been implemented fully? Is it a matter of time, or we are just adamant?
So, Anki, let me first of all, I will answer the question on the commission later, and how we missed it at the constitution-making process in 2009 to 2010. But first and foremost, let me just say that as a way forward, the first thing that government needs to do in relation to this doctor strike is to stop being casual.
What do you mean? What do you mean stop being casual?
Yes. So if you remember the first meeting that was called by the ministry, between the ministry and the doctors, the minister herself, neither the PS was there, they sent representatives. People who cannot make decisions. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but we all saw that. That's casualness in dealing with a matter of national security. Secondly, I also feel that, and I want to agree with the Honorable Elachi, that Parliament has actually failed Kenyans and also failed doctors in this respect. Because one, Parliament of the day today is actually been emasculated by the executive. It's actually an appendage of the executive. And there are members of Parliament themselves who have come out to say this is the most failed Parliament in the history of Kenya. I remember, for example, someone like Otiende Amola said that openly. The member for Kitui West, I think, I can't remember the name, but there are many parliament, including my member of parliament here, Beatrice Elachi, she admits. And I think, for me, that's magnanimity in leadership, to admit that we have been unable to do certain things. Dr. Mulu earlier indicated how a member of parliament actually brought a motion for adjournment to discuss this crisis of health. And the Speaker of the National Assembly just casually, again, just refused that, as if health is not something very important. So cumulatively, you can say the Parliament of the day is being controlled from the executive. That's why they are not able to oversight government, because this is a role of oversight. It's also a role of legislation and representation. They are failing in both. They may have passed laws, but in terms of representing, you must be able to take into account the people who sent you to that parliament. How are they faring on matters health? And therefore, as a representative of the people, I should be able to say, no, let everything else, let's pause everything else for the moment, let's address it, because people are dying. Even Kome himself is saying the members of the public are actually distressed because of this strike, meaning therefore there is a crisis nationally. The last point I want to make in relation to this, and why the reason I say government is casual or even ignorant, and Amapi Sige is here also a lawyer. Okay, let's educate Kenyans.
Right.
Article 6 of the Constitution of Kenya talks about cooperation and coordination between the two levels of government.
Right.
If today the discourse is about that, some members of some doctors are national, others are county, it does not matter. There is a solution in the Constitution. Article 6 says there must be cooperation and consultation between the two levels of government, because the end game is to offer services to each and every part of the Republic of Kenya. I'm talking about Article 6, sub-Article 3 of the Constitution. As if that's not enough, Anki, Article 187 of the Constitution of Kenya provides a formula on how to address a national issue between the two levels of government. It talks about transfer of functions and powers between the two levels of government if that function or power can effectively be realized in one level of government. Mm-hmm. And Article 189 goes further to say you reduce that in some sort of an agreement and a partnership, so that it does not take away your power. For example, as a CS, when you transfer this function, or as a governor, when you transfer this function to the national government, because it will be effectively realized. That is the same philosophy we should take in account of Medicare or issues that are supposed to be held nationally. Because of what purpose is it to hold something nationally when actually somebody, a Kenyan in Ward X, in location X, is not enjoying it? That is, the solution is in the Constitution. Now, on the question of the commissions, as you all know, that constitution making is actually a negotiated agreement. It is not a shopping list that you write and you go to a supermarket and say, I'm picking this orange, I'm picking this juice, I'm picking this and that. So there's give and take, there's compromise in constitution making. Right. And at this stage, let me thank Dr. Andrew Sule, then who was representing the medics when we were doing the constitution. And I remember we negotiated with them because every sector in this country wanted a commission in the constitution. And we told them, listen, we run the risk of being prescriptive and enacting unto ourselves a very expensive constitution. And Dr. Sule and his team said, you know what, we will compromise. There is no perfect constitution in the world. We will pause our agitation for the commission, health commission in the constitution right now, but we shall revisit at a later age. And that's why we put in the constitution articles 255, 256, and 257, so that at the right time, you can now say, okay, maybe there is a lacuna. We need to revisit this constitution and say, is there something we can improve in terms of amendment or whatever? And you look at Article 255, for you, for example, to introduce a new commission, you need a referendum. So all is not lost. But over and above that, like I said, Article 6, 187, 188, gives a formula on how the cooperation can happen between the two levels of government. So we don't have to toss doctors, national or county. you know.
And I just let me hear from Senator directly, because Senator, what we are seeing here, and let's just give it to him that he was one of the minds behind this constitution he's so put forth. If the answer seemingly is right before us, is there a problem between the coordination so far between the national government and the county governments in as far as this particular medical stalemate is concerned?
I would say yes, there's a problem. Why? Because from the information that is available, let's first of all talk about the CBA.
Right.
2017-2021. There was one component on basic salary. That basic salary component, though it's a subject of the dispute as of now, it is admitted that the national government has paid the increment on the part of that particular term of the CBA.
Do come again.
The national government has honored the CBA 2017-2021 on the basic salary increment component. Now, as regards the national government and the county government coordination, it is true that we have got the provisions in the Constitution about cooperation, about transfer of functions, without necessarily affecting the...
Actually, the other word they use is consultation.
Yes.
Cooperation and consultation between the two levels.
About the role of each of the, government, whether national or county. And the unfortunate thing, particularly with regards to that CBA aspect, some governors at the moment are saying that negotiation was conducted devoid of their involvement. Yes.
All right.
And the justification they are giving is that, look, this engagement was with the Council of Governors and not individual governors or counties. And that is not something to say is an excuse, by the way, because the Council of Governors is a representation of the governors. But they are saying, look, because as we speak right now, the county government of Kirinyaga, for instance, its doctors are on contract, right? They are not on PNP. The county government of Bomet, the doctors in the county government of Bomet are on permanent and pension of the PNP. So there is that discrepancy, such that when one says my doctors are on permanent and pensionable, another one is on the basis of contract. It's easier to deal with those on contract than those on PNP. But is it therefore then an excuse to say the cooperation hasn't been good, or consultation or shared functions? It is not an excuse. It cannot be an excuse. Because, well, it's true, we have over-legislated, by the way, in Kenya. Every aspect of anything, name them, there is a law in it. The issue is we have largely been truthful in implementation. We do not have the goodwill to fully implement, such that when we say, therefore, the law is available for the national government and the county government to cooperate, it is indeed there. Whether Article 6 or 189, we can always sit back and say, look, what role then can we do?
I'm sorry to interject, Senator, but yes, you know, in all honesty,
yes,
having seen where the problem is at and that it is in the Constitution, that there should be some proper...
No, the problem is not in the Constitution.
So then how do we streamline this? Because I'm yet to hear a solution. How do we ensure that this is streamlined to a standard for all counties?
Earlier on, you made a comment to the effect that the president has broken his silence on this issue.
Yes.
By saying, look, good people, admittedly, there is a problem in the health sector. And that is why lately, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Parliament passed 4 legislations to deal with the health sector, from UHC to SHIF. He also equally said that though we admit there is a problem, let us be truthful and live within our means. Let's not borrow to pay salaries. So we then cannot say that there is a problem with the law or the Constitution. No. Okay. Remember, we have previously discussed here, we've even right now affirmed a few things with regards to what the Constitution provides in terms of cooperation and all that. But then, do we then say, because we are unable to sit down and agree and compromise, because negotiation is a give and take. This CBA of 2017-2021 is one of the issues that has brought us where we are. It has got over 10 issues. Not all of them cannot be resolved? Why can't we isolate, for example, and say, for us to have a return to work formula, let us resolve this. For instance, if it's about the basic salary component, why can't we say, if it's been honored by the national government, what is it then that these county governments can do?
Right.
Can we then ask them to agree on a return to work formula, paid in installments, so that doctors can go back? All we are saying is that it is not all lost. All we need is, let us have goodwill. And the most unfortunate thing is, what I believe is an aspect of, it's very easy to oppose. It's very easy to criticize, but not easy to say, look, what is this that which we can criticize? We all say the government has failed, and it has not, especially when we look back at the proposals that the government has pushed in. As to whether it's about leadership, the president has talked about it.
Okay. Let me hear from Honorable Elachi, because speaking of, cut the cloth according to your size kind of remarks, Honorable, Dr. Ekuru is saying that's a casual approach to issues. But taxpayers, if I go back in some of the headlines in March, as far as the CASs are concerned, you were introduced by Honorable Dr. Ekuru Okot as having served in that position in the past regime. If we really were to look at that, taxpayers will cough nearly 460 million shillings annually in salaries, thereabout, if I'm not very accurate, for the 50 CASs nominated by President William Ruto. In fact, the CASs are entitled to the same gross pay as permanent secretaries, whose pay was reviewed by the CRC to 765,188 from 874 thereabout. Now, the question is, that there is no money, is it? But a lot of Kenyans, including one very vocal intern on one of the very key mainstream televisions, aired out his grievances and said this is the same government that would rather honor the CSS positions and not look at this integral part of Kenya's heartbeat, the healthcare. You sit in Parliament. Oversight is one of your very key roles, besides representation. What did you say in as far as this no money aspect is concerned?
I have said, I will repeat, it's not that Kenya doesn't have money. It's that Kenya, we mismanage what we have. Because when I'm reading here, 6 counties, 33 billion and clear spending and auditors' adverse opinion, the doctors are there, by the way.
Please read for us the figures.
And Nairobi County, 21.21 billion. Narok, 4.7 billion. Nyamira, 2.3 billion. Kiambu, 2.27 billion. Baringo, 1.96 billion. And Tana River, 1.82 billion.
That's an official report.
I have said,
let us, the people the business day.
Let us not always just look at what is on the cover. I have said the day we will agree as a country to ask ourselves how much, because now that we have very many streams of revenue that we collect, definitely I know we are above 5 billion now per day. Per day. I think we are 8 to 8 now, based on the streams that we have. Now, calculate that and tell me per day, yes, we have all this, but then go back and ask yourselves in other ministries, how much are they spending also per day? Right. Before you even start looking at, oh, this is employment of this one, this is, because I have said, and I will repeat, we have so many ways of dealing with this. Remove the caste, I will bring them back in any other form, they will still be in government. And I have said they were there. It's only that Uhuru now prompted by bringing the name. But they were there and they were receiving salaries. So I have never understood. They were advisors of government, period. And they were there earning the same salaries they earn to date. So I have said, and that's why, and I'm not saying because I was a caste. No, I have said we have refused as a country to agree we mismanage our own revenue that we collect. And it can take care of it. In fact, there is no country across East Africa that has money the way Kenya is wealthy. There's no.
We are wealthy.
Oh, yes, we are. Oh, yes. Because when you read your budgets and you have counties, there's no any other East African country that has counties where all these monies also go and you're doing development. It is, we have, and maybe I'm wrong, but the accountant is, our seniors are here.
Yes.
We will tell you, Kenyans believe in paying revenue. Jitegeme, they do. The only mistake we have,
Mheshimiwa comes in.
The only mistake we have is when now we give it to the leadership to now handle the past, it becomes very unfortunate on how now we prioritize all the things we are doing. And for the many years we have requested Treasury, why can't you bring for once an itemized budget? Whether it makes sense or not, just itemize. Because nowadays we have counties, and counties can itemize what they are doing. But then you find right now, what are we doing as a country? We devolved functions. You feel this function, you still need it also at the national level, and now you start bringing in other functions at the national level. You start remaining again with more money. Then you realize even the ones we are giving money in the counties, when they receive now the monies, when they have left the control of budget, now they want to start spending. They sit on the table and forget the money you requested was for health. They go back and now change it and make it, it's for pending bills, it's for lawyers, it's for education, which was not your function, and now you are using a lot of money on a function that was not yours. And we have never questioned, and the Auditor General is not also questioning. Because I've been asking, if that was not your function, if you have not come and asked that you need to co-share this function so that there's a framework, how sure are we when you come and tell me 1 billion is for education? Now give me the children. Show me who is following that process. Show me how you are able to follow through and know Form 4s have now finished. There were 800, we have removed them. We are moving
structures.
Yes, there's none. So we are just saying 1 billion education, in functions that were never your function. National government, the same. What are you doing with agriculture? What you see? So that's why we decided to mix again, to do, I don't know, a hybrid of Kenya loves hybrid. We are back in hybrid.
You know, Dr. Even as you ask your questions, so that we can hear from Dr. Makani.
I wanted to really respond to the question about living within our means, because I think it escaped me. Or maybe I can let Mheshimiwa go first.
All right. Mheshimiwa, you can go first, but I'll come back to that. Okay. It is important.
Yeah. You know, Doris,
yes.
Now when it comes to financial matters, that is where I have a bit of insights. And I can tell you for sure, this country, by our standards, we are very rich.
Very rich, you say?
Yeah, by our standards.
Extremely rich.
If we were just to manage our resources well. And this song has been sung for so long, and it seems like nobody picks it up. I just want to give you a simple example.
Maybe the tune is not danceable.
The report he has just read, where it is very clear that there's a misappropriation or misdirection of resources, should be a very clear indicator of what happens to those counties in the next financial year. One thing we have missed as a country, and I wish we were able to get it right, is tying our audit reports to budgeting process.
Yes.
So that if I have an audit report saying you have misappropriated 20 billion, or as it is here 1.6 billion, then as we do the next year's budget, the first thing is you knock out 1.9 billion out of your budget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we go that direction, things will be streamlined. The other thing we have not gotten right, and it's important to get right, is prioritization of our expenditure items. Actually, the problem with Kenya is just our expenditure, nothing else. If we got our expenditure right, we'll be home and dry.
Where does this start from? Is it the Treasury? Is it the budget policy? Is it Parliament?
You know,
where do we get it wrong?
It all starts from the executive, and the constitution which our colleague here gave us with other people, and the Public Finance Management Act, allows Parliament only to change by about 1% of the rate of budget. You can only change. You can't change the overall the budget. There are restrictions in terms of legal framework. But the problem starts with the government. We have a government which only thinks about spending. And that's why we have a problem. So that if you pick the total budget in Kenya and looked at where we are spending our money, you do an analysis of where does our money go. You see that some of the money, majority of the money we are using in this country goes to what he was talking about, like GIS, where people just spend on items you can easily do without. And I've said many times, this country, by our standards, is too poor to live the kind of life we live as a country.
You have lost me. You said we are very expensive, we are very rich.
I'm saying we are rich if we are to use our resources. Okay. I'm saying we are poor to live the kind of life we live. What do I mean? For example, last week we were here with this guy, and we were talking about, if you look at our ministers, you look at a minister in this country, and the kind of convoy, the kind of support staff they have, the office of a CS in this country doesn't warrant where we are in terms of economic growth, doesn't warrant us to have that kind of office. We need to trim the expenses of that office to a level that we are within our means. And if we trim to that level, we will be very rich. That's what I'm saying. Right. But we're not doing it. The other thing is very common, and you find it everywhere. Duplication of roles.
Yeah.
You find we have parastatals doing the same thing as ministry is doing. We have account doing the same thing. So when you have this duplication of roles, what happens is the finances suffer most. Because I will give Doris $1 billion to do an activity. Rach will have the same budget of $1 billion doing the same activity. Dr. will have the same budget of $1 billion doing the same activity. So what happens? We will only spend $1 billion. The other $2 billion will be spent for something else. So you lose it. Then I think we have also, like Raj is saying, as a country we have moved from itemized budget to program budget. Program budget is where you talk about what are the targets, the outputs, what are the outcomes. You don't go to the activity level. But that does not mean that you don't look at the activities, because we have those big books you always see, the budget books, we call them printed estimates, which have actually itemized budgets. It's not that those ones don't come to Parliament. What comes to Parliament is a program budget. So Parliament doesn't have that benefit of looking at exactly. We say we are giving agriculture program. We can say like now crop program under the Ministry of Agriculture, we are giving them $3 billion. But it doesn't go down to the how many kilos of seeds we buy. I mean, we don't get that at Parliament. But at the ministry level, they are aware. But what happens? Look at our parastatals. The way we do our parastatals is what we call one-line budget item. So I sent to Ethics and Corruption a budget of $3 billion. It's for them to decide what to do with the money. I sent to a parastatal like Kenya, those ones which are funded by through the Exchequer, so that you get just one line item. And what happens is, that's why you see our parastatals, in most cases, they spend without caring, because the money just comes lump sum. It's for you to sit and decide what to do with the money. And these are some of the simple things you can do. I call them the low-lying fruits we can actually pick.
All right.
And we streamline our financial management as a country. Right. And we'll never lack money to pay our doctors. We'll have money to pay doctors. We'll have money to pay our teachers. Because to me, I think in Kenya, those people who are providing the basic, what I call the basic needs to the Kenyans, are the poorly paid. Those guys who are doing what I call a second layer of services.
Even third level.
Are the guys who are enjoying. So I think we need to change that. The people who are providing basic things needs to Kenyans, then are the people who will pay more. The teachers, the medics, just people without them, the country will not be able to move. I think those ones we need just to pay them more, so that we encourage them, and we have a very strong foundation for this country as we move to the future. But issues matters of finance in this country. You know, no serious manager wants to discuss them, because that's where they make their money.
But we are going to need those serious managers in the next hour, because we are going to be looking at this financial matter even deeper.
So in short, what we are saying is, we just need to tweak a bit the way we spend our money. And we'll have enough for the country.
So just a bit, we don't need a whole U-turn.
No, just
Let me hear from Senator. And I want to come back. I think Dr. had something to say, but Dr. even as you're coming in, and then we have from Senator. You know, in 2017, this strike went for 100 days straight. And let me tell you, it is on record. The strike had terrible impacts, with dozens of patients dying. The ministry estimated that 500,000 children at that time, 2017, were not even vaccinated against some of the world's most, debilitating diseases, including polio, pneumonia, meningitis, measles, influenza, and hepatitis. This is serious. We're just at 32nd or 33rd day today. But What if? Because looking at what is happening, the KMBDU on Sunday, on 14th of April 2024, threatened to even sue Inspector General of Police, Japheth Kome, over his move banning doctors from striking. We do not want to repeat what we should have learned from. You wanted to talk about...
And that's why I think the government should take this issue more seriously. Because, like we started earlier by saying, it's about national security of the country. When healthcare breaks down, honestly, it's a direct impact on the lives and existence of Kenyans, of a nation that you lead. That's why they should take it seriously. And that's why we need to drop some of the threats, like from Kome. I think Kome honestly needs to stop that. But I wanted to just respond quickly to what Mheshimiwa Mulu has said. If you look at he brought a very important point, which is the disconnect between budgeting and expenditure. But I want to go at time of expenditure. You have an Auditor General who actually documents, just like he has documented in those 6 counties, the loss of about 33 billion. Vis-a-vis what the doctors are actually asking for, which is just 4.5 billion. Surely, only from these 6 counties alone, they could actually settle the problem with the doctors. But now the other challenge, and I go back to the point earlier on made by Honorable Lachi, that Parliament has actually failed Kenyans. It's the same parliamentarians, when they receive an Auditor General report, they reduce it in what they are calling findings. Not findings, audit queries. When the Auditor General has actually made findings, and Mwesh is in the finance sector, by the time the Auditor General actually pens down his report, he has actually made a finding that you promised to build a hospital or a dispensary or a bridge. Where is that bridge? That's already a finding. There has to be direct connection between the finding in the Auditor General report with the office of the DPP and of course also Parliament. That DPP should already pick that report and say, Governor X, you are given X amount of money. You have not accounted for. Take the stand. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty? Bring in the Auditor General or whoever. Testify. It won't even take 10 minutes. Those people we should be having a special jail for thieves or public money, but we are not having that. The other connection should be to Parliament itself, like Mheshimiwa said. Now that you have not been able to account X billions of money, in your next budget, we are deducting that from you. But I wanted to just make a quick point about living within our means, as the President said.
Right.
See, and Doris, let me just do a quick comparison between what the doctors are asking or what we are offering them vis-a-vis what the President is proposing for his chief administrative secretaries. Okay? So that we can answer the question, is this a President who really means what he says about living within our means? If we don't have money, then you are proposing largesse in government, including, by the way, some strange office called the Office of the Spouse of the Deputy President, which is taking about 1.2 billion Kenya shillings. I can understand the Office of the First Lady because I think it's been there, but even then, it's not really in the Constitution. Those offices are not in the Constitution.
But First Ladies do a number of things.
Okay, what do they do? Maybe we can have that debate another time. What exactly do they do? What is the value addition to the people of Kenya? What is the value addition to the office of the wife of the Prime Cabinet Secretary to the people of Kenya? These are people with means before. They are not poor people. By the time, for example, the wife of a deputy president, the deputy president is recovering back some 300 or 200 million that KRA had held. These are not ordinary people that you say now you're going to pump more billions at the expense, for example, of what the doctors are saying. But let me let me paint a picture on whether Kenyans can actually agree with the President we live within our means. The President said, doctors, we cannot pay you because the economy does not allow, even though they had said that the economy had stabilized. Now, double speak. 2 months ago, the economy had stabilized. Today, we are told the economy is not stable. We have to live within our means. But the President goes ahead and proposes, I want Chief Administrative Secretary, who I want to pay, number one, 756 in salary. On market adjustment, I'm going to pay them 156,000. For transport, I'm going to give them a motor vehicle not exceeding 3,000 cc. That's about 15 million if you have a good car. A car loan of about 8 million Kenya shillings. Medical benefits, 10 million inpatient cover. Outpatient, 300,000. Maternity, 150. Dental, 75,000. Opticals, 75,000. Retirement package, 31% of the annual pensionable emoluments. Number 7, 20,000 airtime for a CAS. Security, of course, provided by the state. Annual leave, 50,000. Now, that is a president who says, let's live within our means, but he's proposing these largesse on an office that is not even constitutional, which even the courts of law had said they are unconstitutional. But he will not want to honor 4.5 billion for people who are saving lives every day. And by the way, maybe Sigay, answer this question for me. When did the president lose his respect before governors? Because every time the president goes to all these counties, he's well received, the president of the Republic of Kenya here, and you can see everybody running around to meet him. Why is it so difficult for the president today to call all the 47 governors and say, listen, we are dealing with a national crisis on matters health. I want you look at your budgets. Yeah, we have to raise 4.5 billion. Honestly, 47 counties, right, it won't even be a billion for each one of them.
Honorable Sigay, perhaps as you just respond to that, and we want, as you've noticed that we're transitioning slowly into the economy.
Yes.
Yeah. But what is so hard, according to Dr. Ekuru, quote for the president, to settle
just
this?
Call. Yeah.
I earlier on commented about how easy it is to criticize.
Okay.
It's the easiest thing to do. And my senior here finds it the most fertile area to go, especially when it's about, the spending. It's actually double speak on his part. Really? When he says, on the one hand, the president is saying that let's live within our means. On the other hand, he's also telling us a stable economy. He's now intentionally...
No, you are the ones who came with the idea of the economy is stable, not me.
He's selectively making reference to what, according to him, are areas to criticize.
Has the economy been declared stable at one point or the other in the Kenya Kwanza administration?
Of course not, and that is why the president is saying...
Not even in any of the public holidays has he
given be honest,
no. There are three things I can comment about. There are three things I can comment about the state of the economy here and now.
Yes.
One is the fact that we have been able to stabilize our debt ratio and our ability to pay the loans which were taken by the previous regimes. That alone is an outright sign of process of stabilizing our economy. Two, which all of us will agree here, is that at least we equally have managed to fund a number of aspects of our development. I mean, we can talk about what has happened. We can talk about the cost of living, which previously was high at the very high rate. Now it's not yet there, but we are progressively improving. And so, if for lack of a better term, I would then be asked to say, is it stable? From where I sit, I would say we are headed to stabilizing the economy of the country. And when we also speak honestly, without politicizing issues, we have improved. Yesterday, we of course received good news about the cost of fuel, that at least come down. The dollar from 160 to 120. So, do we want to still say that we have not stabilized? I think if we do so, it's not going to be a fair assessment on the status of the economy of this country. We are not yet there though, but we are headed there. Now, what does that mean? It means that when we say let us live within our means, we are not denying the fact that doctors, teachers, and other basic service providers, employees, brothers and sisters who are working on those low cadre and even middle or high cadre levels should be earning more. And the conversation surrounding the CAS story, which is one of the things that my colleague has, in very heavy statement says it's an abuse. It's not here nor there.
Okay.
It is a proposal. And remember, even Beatrice Elachi is saying that, look, we've had this before. When the president says that let's make unpopular decisions, it is acknowledging the fact that there are certain things that we should not allow to happen.
Including Kenyans dying.
Of doctors who are on strike.
Lack of care.
Of doctors who've refused to come back to the table to negotiate. The fact that we have structures of administration, we have got the unions, we have got the ministry, in itself is, an aspect of commitment on the part of the government to speak to the doctors and have a position taken. But, as I had said earlier on, failure to have a round table, failure to come back to the negotiation table is the problem. Who do we blame? Do we shift the blame to the CS who's called upon the doctors to go back and have a negotiation so that they can have a return to work formula? Do we blame the doctors who are saying we are not unless you give us this? And that is a fact. So we should also be able to agree that as Kenyans, we must agree to make those unpopular decisions, including the decision by the doctor to say, out of these 19 items which we have, 5 have been sorted out, or 5 are on the road to being sorted. Let us agree on a return to work formula for the sake of the people of Kenya.
But how do you return to the work formula again when there are threats?
Actually,
how do you
when I came in here, Doris, the screen was running the headline of the People's Daily, that I'll crush you.
Yes.
I unfortunately came in after my colleagues had commented about the statement by Kome and the demand letter by our good friend and colleague, the lawyer representing the team. I will crush you. Kome tells medics. I have a copy of that press statement by Kome. I don't agree with Kome that we can be limited on our rights to picket peacefully or notice for good cause. I am a practitioner of law. I know that that is enshrined in the Constitution. He cannot purport to limit that right.
All right.
That is given. But for the headline to read, I'll crush you, I didn't see in that statement where it says, I'll crush you. I came in when, Doris, you were reading contents about part of the letter that says the Vuvuzelas, discomfort and other businesses. We all have read before the provisions of Article 37 of the Constitution, and where we are saying there is, you are right as you are Kenyan individual. At the point that right ends, my right begins. So it's a balancing act. To the extent that if the doctors have already given out sufficient notice, they're entitled to picket, they're entitled to demonstrate. But then they should be mindful about the rights of other Kenyans.
Okay.
And so it really doesn't warrant a headline of I'll crush you, because this is misleading and misrepresenting to the people of Kenya. Somebody who's not read that letter will say exactly that. IG Kome said, I will crush you.
But of course you do realize that Kenyans have to create a culture of reading deeper into the newspaper.
I hope they do read.
Sentiment.
And so, though we are still struggling with this element of the doctor strike and the rights of Kenyans and as well as those of the doctors, the transition to resolution of this problem is resources. If we had resources, I'm very sure we would have sat back and paid them, and all will be okay. But we don't have, on the one hand. On the other hand, we're saying we are misusing them.
Yes.
When you look at the aspect that the government of the day did, enhancing the tax bracket, enhancing the collections, it is a way of trying to say, let us pull from Kenyans who, by the way, are willing to pay, the way like said. Kenyans are willing to pay. They're willing to support the government. We just need to tie up some of the loose ends which are still there to make sure that whatever collections we get are sufficient enough to fund our budget, as well as now calling upon all of us to make sure that we minimize on the abuses. The most unfortunate thing is the county governments. I oversight the Senate. That is one of the the roles of the Senate, the mandate of the Senate under Article 96 of the Constitution. When you look at what we receive from the various committees dealing with county governments, it is an eyesore. It is worrying. The trend is bad. We, instead of devolving functions, we devolved corruption. That is where a lot of our resources have gone into abuse. And so, as even we transition to it, part of the problem with the doctor strike emanates from the misuse of resources at the county level, from their salaries, to even counties. You can imagine, as I'd said, there are counties where doctors do not have a medical cover, and they're expected to serve the people of Kenya in hospitals.
All right, perhaps if
from my county, their cover is ending in the month of June, and they are worried that they struggle to get it. They might not get it. It's that bad.
So, are you thinking ahead of time?
We've got to.
Should not be
we've got to solve. No. We definitely will have to fight it out so that they also get their rights.
All right, let me hear
they are... Okay.
Yes, let me hear from Honorable Beatrice Elachi. As we conclude this, gentleman and lady, we want to end this and in the next hour come up with another discussion. So in about just 7 minutes to get a roundtable, closing remarks on this issue, because it just caught my attention that in 2017, during that strike, that long strike, Cleopa Mailu then said, he said the government was open to negotiations, but doctors risked missing pay for boycotting work. In fact, in his own remarks then, he said paying someone who has not been working for 30 days is an audit query. What are we looking at? You're just getting your closing remarks as far as this is concerned. Fine, where your right ends, mine begins. Do not disrupt people, in the words of Kome. President saying we don't have these resources. Doctors saying you have to do this. So where does this leave us? Yet we have moments of if you do not work, you cannot be paid. What are your closing remarks?
Yes, by the way, by law, in 7 days, not even 30, 7 days.
Yes.
If you are not at work, your boss has a right to either even interdict you. It's very clear, even in the labor, whether you go to the labor courts and they prove. That's the challenge with the law now. But then having said that, I think the most important thing is we are hoping, my prayer is that this week we can sit down, government, county governments, and the union, the leadership of the union, come onto an agreement of what you feel, how you will unbundle a few of the issues that were raised in 2017. I want to plead that government is government. How do we learn from Kibaki the late on how he managed many things? You see, the challenge we face with our government today, that from 2013, you have refused to agree. You have gone into this relationship like children from stepmothers. The way they fight and they say, oh, my dad didn't do this to me and this one. And we have to agree it was a government. When you take over with all the challenges of that government, and you action yourself as we move. Fine, I agree. I appreciate the president is trying to say he brings in the tough. Fine, yes. Bring it and don't remind us about the last administration, because we all benefited from that last administration. They borrowed money. If they ate the money, you have an opportunity now to go and look for them and put them in jail to refund the money. In fact, you don't need to put them in jail. Just bring back the resources the way we do economic crimes. You don't jail them. You tell them to bring back the money. You recover and we use it. But then, moving forward, you must speak on this and sit down with the doctors and have a solution. After you've gotten your solution, you have a right to see how going forward you prepare a good framework that will never bring you back to this same challenge. It's as simple as that. That would be my prayer.
All right.
Yes.
So for me, my closing remark will be that this government needs
on this matter.
Yes.
Of the show, yes.
So the government needs to stop excuses, or that it was the previous administration, blah blah. After all, they are not strangers in government. They have been there. They are part and parcel of the Jubilee administration.
When you say they,
I mean, President William Ruto was deputy president for 10 years.
Because there are some CSS serving in
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, and of course, we're talking also about some of the members of parliament today who are in the cabinet. For example, someone like Ishunga, was the chairman of the budget committee for 8 years. Kena Kindiki Kiture were leaders of majority in the Senate, and they're all in Jubilee. And many, Kena Duale and the rest. So these excuses need to stop. And they need to stop this cheap discourse that, we were not, it's a previous regime. Government is in perpetuity, as Sigei will confirm to you. Number two, the constitution is supreme, Honorable Elachi. Whether there is a law that says that in 7 days, if you are not at work, the constitution is supreme at Article 37. It doesn't take away that fundamental constitutional right. Otherwise, doctors can still go to the place of work and sit. It's still their right, and picket and demonstrate. They don't have to be physical, but they are now exercising a constitutional right to go on demonstration and to demand. Lastly, by the way, the Health Commission was actually in the first harmonized draft of the Constitution in 2009. It was the discussions at the Hilton Hotel, if I recall very well, that were later on taken to Naivasha. And it was the Parliamentary Select Committee, then chaired by Honorable Abdikadir Hussein, then a member of Parliament for Mandera, who actually removed the Health Commission from the Constitution making. And by the way, President William Ruto then was a member of parliament, was actually a member of the PSC. Uhuru Kenyatta was a member of the PSC, and so many others. So they're actually the ones who removed the Health Commission from the commission. And the reason earlier on I said, I thank the magnanimity of someone like Andrew Sule, because when it was removed, they actually reached a compromise and say, listen, this is very important for us. We don't want to be the reason why the constitution will stagnate, because we are actually on a very delicate balance. You remember even the evangelicals had actually threatened to shoot down the constitution because of Article 26, sub-Article 4 on the right to life. So some people compromised. But now, we are now looking at the gravity of matters health. Maybe it's time now to revisit and say we need a national commission that actually coordinate matters health because of its integral importance in the existence of Kenya.
Thank you.
I will close on this topic on 4 issues. I'd like to ask the doctors to not only consider the strike as a solution to the problems. It is beyond strike. It is beyond the demand for a number of the issues they have raised. It deals with the lives of Kenyans. They should be ready to come back to the negotiating table, agree on the return to work formula, isolate the issues, those which can be resolved at this stage be resolved, those which can be put forward for further negotiations and resolution. There is a win-win situation here for purposes of accepting to work within the oath that they took of office of protecting life. And so, as I say, the strike is not a solution to all the problems, but negotiation is the only way out for a win-win situation for both the doctors and the government of Kenya and the people of Kenya whole.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makali. As we conclude the doctors' statement.
I think as you conclude, let's live with these facts that our people are dying. Kenyans are dying out there. As to what numbers, we might not be able to verify that. Now, the second point is, as a result of this strike, most of the medical now services have been shifted from public institutions to private. In this country, unlike other countries, it's the same doctors who treat us when we go to the private sector. I will go see Dr. Kariuki in Kenyatta Hospital, and in the afternoon, I'll find him in his private clinic somewhere in Nairobi Hospital, which means there's now more business in the private sector than the public sector.
That not being the real name, is it? You just picked a random name?
I've just picked a
or in case a doctor would call it.
Yeah, right. There's so many Kariukis anyway. Yes. I don't know which one will call me. But I'm just giving an example. So what has happened, and I think this is what the government needs to understand, is that from a private perspective, the doctors now have more business when they go to their private clinics and when they go to the private hospitals, where they also consult. But the public now is essentially suffering. So while we might think that we're actually arming them more by saying we'll stop their salaries, we'll sack you, they're already making money, their children are still going to school, they're meeting their bills. It's not like me, if I was told you are not a member of parliament, I may not be able to meet my bills. So what you're saying is such a situation where the person you think you're punishing might be benefiting more, then you need to be more strategic and more intelligent.
All right.
What I'll call for is, can people get back to a round table and continue the negotiations so that doctors go back to our public hospitals?
Right. Doc, you're speaking about another category of doctors. You see here, the biggest question here is about the frontline doctors, the new ones. I think that's where the question, and those are the people who are actually serving the people of Kenya. The hustlers.
Everywhere.
But the senior ones have got their private clinic.
No, even for your information in Daktari, in the rural setting, it's the same clinic officers who move from the public hospital to our private clinics in the area. So it's not the senior ones. Every doctor, actually, anytime you are called a doctor, even look at the small chemist we run in the same guys, the pharmacists and all those.
And I appreciate the Kenyans watching this morning, streaming all the way from Accra. We have received the love from Accra, Ghana. And thank you very much from Dr. Matanga. And thank you very much for joining us on this particular show. But looking at the high cost of living, sometimes essentially, and of course media has been put on the spot as well, for making headlines, publishing them and not doing follow-ups. We've seen what has happened with the EPRA just yesterday. Does this then mean that the high cost of living is pretty much looking better for you. It might go down. Looking at the dollar against the shilling. Let's come to the reality on this on the table after this very short breather. Don't go too far away. This is KTN News. We'll be right back.
But Sige, this issue of doctors is really a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
I just feel that government is not too serious.
No,